The ordinary man's choice. Look at Chris Watts, husband, father, neighbor, an ordinary man, facing ordinary problems. But that's what makes this story so terrifying, because every destructive choice he made had a better path, a wiser voice waiting to guide him. Marcus Aurelius said that we have power over our minds, not over outside events, and when we realize that, we find strength. Chris had that power, but he chose not to use it. He could have faced his discomfort with courage. He could have spoken honestly. But instead, he went quiet. He chose deception. Most family annihilators don't begin with violence. They begin with avoidance, small lies, excuses, a refusal to confront hard truths, until that becomes their only language. This isn't just a crime story. It's a warning, a lesson in what happens when we trade wisdom for weakness. The first lie. Shanann shared their life online. Photos, videos, smiles, a family that looked complete. But Chris felt something else. Trapped, suffocated, disconnected. And instead of speaking his truth, he began to lie. Thomas Jefferson once said that honesty is the first chapter in the book of wisdom, but wisdom requires courage, and Chris avoided both. Gloria Steinem warned us, the truth will set you free, but first it will piss you off. Chris feared that reaction. He feared confrontation, so he chose the coward's path. Did you know he started deleting his text messages? 2 months before the murders, he was already preparing his escape. He began an affair with Nicole Kessinger, told her he was separated, built a new fantasy life. One where his wife and children simply didn't exist. Muhammad Ali said that he who is not courageous enough to take risks will accomplish nothing in life. But Chris didn't take the right risk. He risked everything good for something empty, when Stoicism could have saved him. August 2018. The walls were closing in. Shanann knew. She felt the distance. She saw the signs. She asked the hard questions. She demanded honesty. This was Chris's moment, his crossroads. Eckhart Tolle reminds us, you are not your thoughts. You are the observer of your thoughts. Chris could have observed his fear, acknowledged his shame, accepted the consequences, but instead, he buried it all. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." Chris could have chosen virtue. He could have broken the cycle. Did you know Shanann confronted him directly? August 8th, she found the charges. Hotel rooms, dinners for two, and she gave him 5 days. 5 days to tell the truth, to choose courage over destruction. Seneca believed that difficulties strengthen the mind, just as labor strengthens the body. But Chris didn't see hardship as growth. He saw it as a threat, and instead of facing it, he chose the unthinkable. The moment philosophy died, 2 a.m. August 13th, 2018. Shanann comes home from a business trip. Pregnant, tired, but hopeful. Still believing in their love. Chris has a choice. Right here. Right now. Viktor Frankl once wrote, between stimulus and response, there's a space. And in that space lies our power to choose. Our growth. Our freedom. Chris had that space. That moment. That breath. He could have confessed. He could have asked for help. He could have left. But he didn't. Mark Twain warned us, anger is an acid, and it does more harm to the vessel than to anything it's poured on. But Chris wasn't angry. He was empty, detached, a calm, cold vacancy. Did you know a neighbor's security camera caught him? 5:27 a.m., carrying something heavy to his truck, something the size of a body. Albert Camus once said, "The only way to deal with an unfree world is to become so free that your very existence is a rebellion." But Chris didn't choose freedom. He didn't rise. He destroyed it. When darkness wins, what Chris did next defied every teaching, every moral compass, every human instinct. He strangled Shanann, his pregnant wife, the mother of his children, and he wasn't out of control. He was calm, methodical, fully aware. Martin Luther King Jr. said, "The ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in times of comfort, but where he stands in times of challenge and controversy." Chris failed that measure, utterly, completely. But it wasn't over. His daughters woke up, Bella and Celeste. They saw their mother. They were confused, scared. Denzel Washington once said, "The way we treat our children in the dawn of their lives will determine how they treat us in the twilight of ours." Chris was supposed to protect them. Instead, he became their nightmare. Did you know Bella, just 4 years old, looked at him and asked, "Is the same thing going to happen to me as Mommy?" She knew. She understood. And still, she called him Daddy. He drove them to a remote oil site, and one by one, he ended their lives. Denzel Washington also warned, "If you don't deal with your demons, they'll drag you down to hell." Chris's demons won. The performance of evil. The next morning, Chris goes on television. He plays the grieving husband, the worried father, the man with no answers. He looks into the camera and says, "I just want them home. I have no idea where they are. Someone must have taken them." But none of it is true. Ayn Rand once wrote, "The truth is not for all men, but only for those who seek it." Chris wasn't seeking truth. He was running from it, clinging to performance, because confession meant collapse. Mark Twain said it simply, "A lie can travel halfway around the world, while the truth is putting on its shoes." But lies, they always collapse. Did you know Chris failed his polygraph? Not just failed, the examiner said she had never seen someone fail so completely. Every answer triggered a spike. Every lie exposed itself through his own pulse. Brené Brown teaches us, integrity is choosing courage over comfort, choosing what is right over what is fun, fast, or easy. But Chris didn't choose courage. He chose comfort. He chose easy. And in doing so, he chose destruction. Every wise voice in history was screaming the opposite. The collapse. The investigation tightens. Security cameras, phone records, body language experts. Chris's lies begin to unravel. One by one, they fall apart. James A. Garfield once said, "The truth will set you free, but first, it will make you miserable." Chris was about to learn just how heavy that misery can be. Abraham Lincoln warned us, "You can fool all the people some of the time, and some of the people all the time. But you can't fool all the people all the time." The FBI corners him. There's nowhere left to hide. No more lies, no more performance, no more pretending to be the victim. And here's something that still stuns investigators to this day. While police were searching for his wife and daughters, Chris was texting his mistress, sending her love messages, while the bodies of his children lay hidden in oil tanks. Martin Luther King Jr. once said, "In the end, we will remember not the words of our enemies, but the silence of our friends." Chris's silence killed more than hatred ever could. Finally, he confesses, but by then, it's far too late. The choice is always ours. Here's what haunts me most. Chris Watts wasn't born a monster. He wasn't evil by nature. He was weak by choice. At every turn, there was another way, a wiser way, a more human way. Marcus Aurelius once said, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." Chris saw obstacles, but he didn't face them. He erased them, along with the people he claimed to love. His marriage problems weren't the end. They were a beginning. The beginning of growth, of honesty, of courage. There's a Japanese proverb, "Fall 7 times, stand up 8. Chris fell once and never got up. He pulled others down with him. Edmund Burke said it clearly. The only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing. But Chris didn't just do nothing. He became the evil. Oscar Wilde believed, "Every saint has a past, and every sinner has a future." Chris had a future. So did Shanann. So did Bella, Celeste, and Nico. They lost theirs because he refused to choose wisdom. Now maybe you're listening to this because you're facing your own choice, your own burden, your own silence. C.S. Lewis said, "You're never too old to set another goal or to dream a new dream." And there's this. The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now. Chinese proverb Chris Watts chose darkness. But you can choose light. Gandhi once said, "Strength does not come from physical capacity. It comes from an indomitable will." And Booker T. Washington reminded us, if you want to lift yourself up, lift up someone else. So choose wisdom over weakness, truth over lies, courage over comfort. The philosophers are still speaking. The choice is always yours.